Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and it's my pleasure to introduce you again to a third-time repeat guest on our program, Dr. Gregory Jantz, PhD, author of the newly released book, Healing the Scars of Addiction, Reclaiming Your Life, and Moving into a Healthy Future. Dr. Jantz is a popular speaker and award-winning author of many books, including Healing the Scars of Emotional Abuse, Healing the Scars of Childhood Abuse, and Overcoming Anxiety, Worrying, and Fear. He is the founder of the Center, A Place of Hope, www.aplaceofhope.com in Washington State. You can learn more about Dr. Jantz at drgregoryjantz.com. Dr. Jantz, welcome back to Revealing the Truth.
Well, good, and we want to jump right in. We got an important topic today.
It is important. Healing the scars of addiction. I think that this is one of those areas, and I minister at a women's recovery center here in Birmingham. And these are people who have had a really rough time. It's an alternative prison sentencing program, make it through the program, 13, 15, 17 months, all depends, some of them 10 months through the program, and we're going to set aside your sentence and get you a job and get you back. And you can visibly see the transformation from the certain drugs cause metabolic physical changes in you, and you see the physical impact of somebody. The teeth, the eyes, the skin, the complexion are impacted, but the thought life and the thought pattern is what is so skewed, and there are so many consequences to addiction. And what I appreciate about all of your books is your books start with the healing process, not the technicalities of daily therapy and pharmacology. And we're talking about this. Now we're on the other side. Let's get you to the other side. Now what do we do with that? Because that's the scarier walk. We have the hard scare where we make the decision, or the decision is made for us to get help. Now we come out of the help, and now we have this reentry, and we have to heal, and everybody who's in our sphere of our life also has to go through a healing process, and we have to be the arbiter and take ownership of being the arbiter of that healing. From a faith perspective, we're the paraclete to the paraclete. It's an interesting dynamic, because we're the comforter, using the comforter to bring comfort in this whole understanding of the Holy Spirit. So your vision has always been healing, and I think you just told me 31 years now. At the center, A Place of Hope. It is truly a place of hope. But you write in the book that addictions can act as emotional dams holding back pain. These dams hold back pleasure as well, and when we bridge up one dam, we tend to have an overflow go into another dam, and it's almost like water management, healing management. How do I divert, and how do I keep from flooding, and how do I actually do this, and where do I start?
Sure. You know, when we think about addiction, sometimes we only think about alcohol and drugs. And today we want to broaden that and go, well, there's food addiction, certainly a digital addiction. We have so many ways to become addicted. And when we use the word addicted, we're talking about a behavior that we continue to do despite the consequences. And all addiction will take us down this destruction. It's a self-destruction ultimately, unless we intervene, and sometimes people don't intervene until the very end, and they've lost everything. And you mentioned health, they lost people. So when we talk about addiction today, it can include a lot of different things. Sometimes it's the secret. It's the secret pornography addiction. We keep a lot of secrets around those things that we're addicted to. So today we just want to bring it out and say we're going to talk about this today. And when I think about healing, there are scars, and you described that so well. But these scars can also ultimately be used really to speak truth and to be a person of hope to others. So I also want to just say, I see people who recover. I've seen people who have struggled with an alcohol, and it's 20 years. It's a long time, and their identity, who they are, it seems gone. But there's a restoration process. You hinted to one of those pieces, and that's the piece of our emotions. Well, if every time I get upset or angry or I have a stressed out day at work, I turn and I drink or I secretly eat to deal with those emotions, I mean, that's all I know. And now if I'm not going to use my addiction, I still have these emotions. I still am angry. I'm upset. I'm stressed out. I have to have a whole new way of relating to the world and different ways of handling my emotions.
Do we find ourselves replacing one behavior for another, or do we tame the beast?
Well, we're in a process of taming that beast. It's really easy. We have a term that we call it dancing between addictions. The person says, well, I no longer drink, but boy, are they the sugar addict, or they've just transferred addictions. They're kind of dancing between addictions. Well, that means I really haven't gotten to that core issue or what core issues that are causing me to engage in an addiction. Fundamentally, we may just be lost about who we are. What's our identity? Who am I if I don't have this addiction in my life? Will I like who I am? So there's a lot of those questions. And, addiction just hides. It hides us. And so it's that whole idea of an onion and peeling all the different layers. Look, we've got to get to the core issues. And I know God designed you, I'm going to say, for a purpose. And you can have healing. And you can be who you've been called to be. And that is possible.
When we look in the Bible, we see that there were those who had addictions to certain sins.
Sure.
Whether or not it was lust of the eyes, whether or not it was sexual sin. We see entire cities, communities brought to destruction because of their addiction to something that was not of God. When we look to process the healing process, oftentimes we have to open back up something that appears to be healed and whole, but we actually have to incise it so that we can actually heal it properly, because what happens is we have this void in there that's never been healed, and that's where the addiction lies, in that point of pain that we cover up. It appears well and functions well, and many hide it incredibly well. But that process is a process of stripping away. I liken it to going to the doctor and saying, "Doctor, I have an abdominal pain." And so he begins to push and says, "Does it hurt there?" You go, "No." "Does it hurt there?" "No." "Does it hurt there?" "Yes." "Oh, ow." What does he always do? He always presses that place a second time. And the first time is to identify where it hurts. The second time is to begin to go through the process of why it hurts. What's the source of the pain? And you use that kind of technique within your own practice of, let's take a look at the points of pain and what is it that is driving you to this.
Yes.
How do we have the personal accountability? Let's say I'm struggling in a particular area. Family members don't know it. Maybe I keep people at a distance so that nobody ever gets close enough to see it. I'm fully functional in the world, going through all the roles, but yet there's that something, that piece of baggage that's quite private, quite personal, kept quite tucked in, that little dark darling of the heart. How do we go about asking for help? We tend to think of addiction as, oh, well, there's an intervention.
Sure.
Somebody jumped into it, but there's lots of people that come to you on their own who are not happy with where they are.
And a lot of times folks come to us because they're depressed and anxious, and it's really not the addiction that's driving them to get help. The addiction is a way of coping. An addiction is a mood elevator. It changes our mood. It changes how we feel temporarily. And it distorts reality for us so we can escape. Now, folks may ultimately get depressed and anxious, so they're coming in for help for that, but behind that depression is an addiction that needs to be addressed as well. And then why are we struggling with that addiction? So when I look at this, I think we've got, and you said, what's the first step, basically? Well, there comes a place we have to be honest with ourselves and look in the mirror and have that conversation and say, what I'm doing really is not a good idea. This is not working. And you can ask yourself the question, if I continue this, what I'm doing right now, a year from now, where am I going to be? I'm going to spend a lot more money. My relationships will be in disrepair. My health, an addiction is a ticking time bomb. Eventually something will break. I think of a gal who I talked with recently, and she had a secret addiction of binging on food, and nobody knew this for years and years, and she would go and then throw it all up. She was bulimic, and this was her secret. And her day of awakening was the day that she had her head over the toilet throwing up, and her esophagus tore, and she began to see blood. And she panicked because that was the ticking time bomb physically. Eventually something's going to go off. And she said to herself, this is out of control. I have got to get help. So we've got to be willing to tell the truth. We hear addiction and denial. Well, I've got to tell the truth. This is not working, no matter what the addiction is. I've got to be willing to say, I need help. Now, maybe you think you're getting away with it. You've got away with it for so long. But there is a reckoning day. Something will happen. We don't get away with an addiction. It has complications, again, physically, spiritually, emotionally, relationally. It will take its toll. And usually when people wait so long, they regret it. I shouldn't have waited so long. I didn't have to. And so my word is, you're going to have regret if you don't do anything. Do something today about getting help, so you're not going to have that future regret.
When we look at the role of the individual in the healing process, then we look at the team that is surrounding the individual, then we will look at the re-entry process. And I think a lot of your approach has been the healing part and then going back into how do I recover? What does recovery look like? What does a recovered life look like? How do I walk in my new identity? What is that new identity, and who is the architect of that new identity? Am I now a protege of Dr. Jantz and I've come out of his program? Or am I defined by God, and Dr. Jantz and his team have helped me find a lot of my purpose?
Sure.
And then how do I deal with those who are the casualties, whether it's a long line of casualties or it's a short line of casualties? There's casualties from there are people who are the casualties of other people's addiction.
Yes.
How do I deal with that?
Wow. First of all, I hope at best that our team is equippers. We want to teach, we want to equip, we want to empower. But you know what? You've got to come to a place where I come to a revelation of who my identity is in Christ. I've got to come to that revelation that God has a plan and purpose for me, and I'm not to, I'm not to take on anybody else's identity. I was made for a specific purpose and calling, and that's the place we've got to come to. This is why so many people in recovery go, well, I know I want to help others who've walked through this or are walking in it. I want to be an instrument of hope, and God uses them that way. There's times too that we need to remember that we really are certainly a work in progress, but people who are in recovery, probably two things come to my mind. One is they're extremely grateful. It's like, wow, my life has been redeemed. I see that now. And you see this incredible gratitude that begins to emerge as I live differently. The other is I become more humble. I realize I don't have all the answers, and I become extremely teachable. And so humble people are growing people. They're teachable. And we enjoy being, think about, do I enjoy being around somebody that's boastful and prideful, or do I really enjoy being around somebody that's grateful and they're humble? And you think about it, you begin to attract people into your life just because of what's changed for you, and your relationships will change. You're going to have healthier relationships.
When I look at this process, do people ask the question, how come I'm an addict and my sister isn't, or my friend isn't?
Yeah.
Is there that we're in this relative comparison world where everybody's measured against another? Now, with so many people open about drug use or open about alcohol use, it's almost put it in a normalization to the point where, of course, prohibition was overturned. Marijuana is now legal in a number of states. There are those that would like to make it nationally legalized. So we're now moving towards more availability of marijuana. What's next on the agenda?
Sure.
And are we looking at addiction becoming a product of availability, product of society, product of woundedness, product of identity crisis? What's the heart of addiction? Because there are those that say, for instance, in my family, I've been through surgeries, I've been given opioids, I hated them. As soon as I could get rid of them, it was the faster you can get me off them, the better. I hate them. They make me feel horrible. Do me a favor, find some other method. I don't want them. Mm-hmm. I'm just wired that way, where I don't believe I have any addictive aspects to me. You couldn't give me a drug I liked enough. And in the '60s, I tried them all, and I didn't like any of them enough.
Yeah.
To continue. So why is one person, are they predisposed? Yeah. Is it environmental? What is it, mental? Is it a mental illness? Are there multiple factors working at play here?
Well, I'm going to be the guy that says there's probably multiple factors. I can't blame it all on my DNA. And we don't always know why. There are certainly people that have more of an addictive kind of personality, and you see this low impulse control. It's like, they just don't control their impulses well, and you kind of see them going from thing to thing. Some personality features, perhaps. Now, they can learn to manage that and do just great. So there certainly is an addictive type of personality. There are those who maybe they were a victim of severe abuse or trauma, and they were just looking for a way to cope, and maybe they found alcohol or drugs to cope, and it just helped them feel better at the time. So there's different reasons why. One thing I know is a person who starts drinking is probably not drinking to say, man, I really am drinking to become an alcoholic. I'd really like to be an addict. That's not our intent, but that's what happens. I think, too, that some folks have what we'll call accidental addiction. You mentioned opiates. Sure, I can have a surgery, been given some pain pills, and suddenly I am like craving those like crazy, and I will do anything to get those. Well, part of that's my unique body chemistry. That's true for enough people that we know we have an opiate crisis or epidemic. We have way too many people dying of opiate addiction, and it started off innocently. And so we need to understand, well, that can happen too. So be really careful about how you judge somebody struggling with an addiction. It's easy to say, what's wrong with them? Why don't they just stop drinking? Why don't they just stop taking those pills? So it's easy to be really judgmental. That's not helpful. So there is this accidental addiction. I never started off to be addicted to painkillers, and here I am. I'm buying them on the street corner. So we need to understand that can and does happen.
In the process of bringing healing and reconciliation to an individual that's trying to work their way through to the other side where they can begin to heal the scars of addiction. You know, we've heard all the time that the first step is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah.
You know, that almost sounds a little cliche. The first step is knowing really that something's not right.
Yep. What I'm doing is not working.
It's not working. It's not really that I have a problem. It's just that things aren't going right. And what part am I playing in that?
Sure.
And I think if we have a relationship with God, that's kind of the dialogue we're supposed to be having with God is, Lord, let there be change. Let it begin with me. But right now, things aren't going right. What is it? And I speak before groups of people, and I always say to them, before I say to you, you're not doing this and you're not doing that, I'm going to say to you, if there's something I need to be doing differently, I want you to come to me and tell me. Yes. Lord, if there's going to be change, let it begin with me. Before I start looking out and casting blame on others, I certainly play a part in this. We're talking with Dr. Gregory Jantz, a good friend of this program, a man I admire greatly, who is the author of Healing the Scars of Addiction, Reclaiming Your Life and Moving into a Healthy Future, just the latest of many of his wonderful books on how we begin to deal with so many aspects of our life that are associated with pain, the pain of everyday living, and how we can cope with some of the pains of the past, some of the pains of the present, and for many who aren't struggling in any area, how you can actually avoid some of the pains of the future, which are also great ways to read Dr. Jantz's book. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to answer some of the questions that a lot of people have is like, who am I if I'm not this drug-addicted person? Who am I if my identity is tied up in me being the life of the party? What happens to me if I'm not in that comfort zone, and what do I do next to rebuild a life? And what about those that are still in my life that are so suspicious of me, that are looking for every warning sign, that I actually feel entrapped and strangled in all of the people that are looking for me to stumble?
Good. Yeah.
We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our 1-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're talking with our good friend, Dr. Gregory Jantz, author of the newly released book, Healing the Scars of Addiction, Reclaiming Your Life, and Moving into a Healthy Future. Dr. Jantz, welcome back to the program.
Very good to be talking about this topic.
It's so important. We can't talk enough about it, and it's not a national crisis, it's a personal crisis, and It's one person at a time. It just happens to be a collective number of people, and I really think it diminishes when we make it a national crisis. We lose the individual that is struggling, and it becomes this big issue, but that one person that you're dealing with and trying to carry them through, they don't want to be caught up in the tidal wave of this national crisis. They want their life to be put back together again, and they want healing. So I appreciate the way you, for 31 years, have approached the healing of the individual. And it is a path to healing. It is not a path to recovery. There's a huge difference. Help our audience understand the difference between recovery in healing?
Sure. Well, the word recovery can be a little confusing. If I've struggled with addiction and I'm no longer engaged in it, I'm in recovery from that. But healing means healing's probably a step further. Healing means that I've really activated who God has called me to be. I'm not stuck on the past. I'm not recycling my past. I've probably experienced some forgiveness. I've probably become a more forgiving person. If I'm living in healing, I'm working on having healthy relationships. I believe that God has a purpose and a plan, and I'm going to probably be more optimistic and future oriented. A danger of just recovery, we've got to get to recovery, but a danger is just staying and staying maybe stuck in that. I want you to move even beyond recovery, but you got to do that first.
You know, it's interesting that people will make the claim, I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Sure.
I'm always going to be an alcoholic. I'm just in the recovery stage. And I'm wondering if, and I'm not an expert in this area whatsoever, so I just know, I hear myself, people affirming their addiction as opposed to your approach, which is let's walk in the healing.
Sure.
You know, I'm a cancer survivor means I was healed of cancer. I'm not a recovering cancer survivor.
Right.
I am a cancer survivor.
Yes.
That's a definitive. It's an explicative. It is a firm statement that I survived cancer. I would personally like to hear somebody say, I survived drug addiction. I survived alcoholism. I'm a survivor, as opposed to I'm always going to be a drug addict. I'm just in recovery. Listen, Celebrate Recovery, all these programs have done phenomenal work, and this is not a commentary.
Right.
This is you and I trying to develop some understanding of how we walk out our healing. Am I more empowered by saying that I survived drug addiction than I'm a recovering addict?
Sure. Well, and you know, this is, we want to encourage those who have been helped, and maybe you're in AA and you say, man, that's my lifeline. I'm going to say, great. I want you to keep growing. Let's not stay stuck in that. Let's keep growing. Christ tells us we have a new identity. And I want to make sure that you're putting on the new identity. If you say, you know, I'm a recovering addict, great. Now, but also I want you to be able to say that I have a new identity in Christ, and be able to see yourself as transformed. If you need to say, I'm an addict, I'm in recovery, and you feel like that keeps you humble, well, humble's a key component. But remember, you're being transformed. You have a new identity in Christ, and let's keep walking that out. You know, it's kind of like the debate, well, is an addiction in my genes? Is it all in my DNA? Well, we can debate that, and we probably won't, you know, have a full understanding. But what we know is, I don't want to stay stuck. I want to keep growing. So we don't always know the whys to all this, and that's okay. We know that there are some people that are more maybe tendency to lean towards more addiction, and you can see that in their chemical makeup. Maybe their brain is what we call a craving brain. You're constantly craving things. Maybe your digestion's off. There's physical cravings. We all have different reasons. We just don't want to get stuck in I'm not growing or I'm stale, and we don't want to get stuck in blame. You know, so don't blame your genes, don't blame others. Blaming people don't grow.
Right. I almost want people to wear a sandwich board that says, I am not my addiction.
Sure. Yeah, that's not your identity.
Because society tends to do that.
Sure.
And applies that label to you. So how do I break through that and begin to, and there's two very specific packages. 2 Corinthians 5:17 says, anyone who's in Christ is a new creation. Then Paul goes on to say, not that I've accomplished all this, a humble statement. He said, but this I do, forgetting what's behind, I press on to the prize of the high calling in Christ Jesus. These are two fundamental principles of your healing program that says that we can't erase your past, but we can certainly repair, and we can certainly bring healing and reconciliation so that you don't have to keep going back there, keep returning to the poison. We can heal you so that you don't have to keep going back.
Yeah, and you know, we all may still struggle with temptation. You may have a stressful day or something happens, and maybe there's a significant loss in your life, maybe a loss of job, a loss of a loved one, and you're struggling, and it brings back all those old feelings, and the temptation could be really great. And you go, oh, what's it worth? My wife left me, I lost my job, and it's easy to get into that old thinking that'll set you up to fall back into that addiction pattern. So dealing with temptation is real as well. I just want to mention that today.
I think it's important that we understand that God is the reminder of your future. Satan is the reminder of your past.
Yeah.
And if we take a look at, in your book, you know, we talk about why can't I see what this is doing to others. When we are addiction is a self-inflicted, not a community activity. It involves self. It usually involves it done in private. There may be those who do it in a social environment, but then continue it in private. So it's not a group activity. So why should I have some sensitivity towards the impact it's having on other people when it's my private prison, it's my private place? Do we find that people who struggle in this addiction, who have to become made aware of what it's done to other people in order for them to take an inventory of, oh my gosh, had I known that it was affecting people this way? Because I do know families meet in secret all the time, talk about what they know about Johnny. They're just not willing to talk to Johnny about it or confront Johnny about it for whatever the reason is. Maybe Johnny will turn violent. Maybe they don't know how to get help. How do we present this? What are some of the tools we can use?
We need to remember an addiction's blind to what it's doing to others. It blinds us, so we don't know the pain that we've caused others. And other people, maybe who we live with, have enabled us. You hear this word enabling or codependent. You know, we all have somebody in our life that we will do anything for, and sometimes it's not the best thing, but we love them so much. You know, it's like the mom who just gave the son money again, and he says, I'm not going to use it for drugs, and he's been living on the street, and I love him so much, he's got to have money for food. But a part of you knows that was not the right thing to do. But we can inadvertently at times enable this to continue, and that's really not, enabling is really not, I'm going to say, not really love. It's keeping a destruction going. I believe, you know, and we our foundational verse and theme is Jeremiah 29:11 that we've all heard, but it's a promise of a future and a hope. And when we deal with this and we're honest with my addiction, not only affected me, but it affected other people. Maybe I need to go and you hear the word amends. Maybe I need to seek and ask for forgiveness. I need to check in with some people. Maybe you lied a lot about money, and part of your healing is just being truthful and going and saying. I recall talking to a person who had stolen cash from their employer, you know, small amounts over time, and it was years ago. And that really bothered them when they came to a place of freedom from their addiction, this kept coming up about their stealing in the past, and it was disturbing. And many years later, this individual went and said, "I'm so sorry. I was stealing money out of the till, and I just need to ask you to forgive me." Here the person they were stealing from did not even know it, but that was a point of healing, being truthful and seeking forgiveness. So addiction does affect others, and when we seek out and just clean up and go, "I'm so sorry. I'm living differently now. Will you please forgive me? I know this had to affect you." That can be a point of healing in a relationship.
Do people struggle with the fact that they have perpetrated all of these things and hurt so many people that they say, "Am I really worth? Do I really deserve to have my life put together again? I shattered so many other people's lives. Do I really deserve? Maybe I should just. Maybe I keep doing drugs because I hope I'll OD. I don't want to do it on purpose, but my hope is I'll never know if I'm going to get a bad batch of something, but I'm just going to keep doing it until I do, and I'm going to be fine about it because I don't deserve to be healed and whole and live a rich and fruitful life."
Damaged sense of self that feels like I'm undeserving and I'm not lovable. So I'm not lovable. I've already brought on, affected my family. I've affected my family name. Maybe you feel like I've ruined some relationships. Maybe you were entrusted with a family business, and you feel like I've ruined it. I wasted everything. I don't deserve to be loved, and I'm unlovable. And you hear those messages, ultimately continue to live the lie that this addiction has taught you. To live the lie will keep you stuck. And so it's easy to fall into that, but you're still living in the past. God can redeem. God can not only redeem, but give you a whole different future. So isn't it good news that we all get a new start? And sometimes we need multiple new starts.
How do we reinsert ourselves back into we have to be aware that whatever we're struggling with is now known. So the cat's out of the bag. The secret's out. The secret was out long before you came to grips with it, because people saw the impact of it. Now you're trying to re-enter. How do you handle the naysayer? How do you handle the unforgiver? How do you handle the one that continues to say you were an addict, you're always going to be an addict, you're never going to recover from addiction, and I want no part of you? That's a rejection that nobody wants to hear. In your book and in your counseling, how do we cope with that? How do we deal with that?
And there are people that won't believe us. Maybe they feel like they were lied to so many times. Who are you going to surround yourself with now? When we recover and begin to walk in healing, our relationships change. We start to get new and hopefully healthier relationships. So you've got to leave that from the past. And yes, we attempt to seek amends, we seek forgiveness, we do our part. But there are some you've got to move on. The person who just keeps saying, "There's no hope for you. I know you're really an addict, and I'm never going to forgive you." Well, you've done your part. You need to move on from that. You cannot believe those old lies.
Right. I know that you and I have met now. I think this is either your third or your fourth visit with us here. What was the motivation for you personally to open the Hope Center, or the Center, A Place of Hope? What was going on with you, your family? the calling on you. What drew you to this? Because
Sure.
you are one of what I consider to be one of the real deal success stories in transformational life, because you're biblically practical, realistic, and don't set any false. I've been talking to you for almost 2 years now.
Yeah.
There's no false expectation, and
Sure.
everything's fair game. We talk about
Sure.
everything. There's nothing that's off limits. How did you get called to this, and what do you think is the real success and the reason that the center, Place of Hope, has been around and thriving for 31 years?
Well, it really did start with a vision in school, and I met my wife in school, and we really had a vision for what we were calling whole person care. Honestly, I knew that psychology alone didn't have all the answer. I knew psychology alone missed the mark, and at school we weren't really taught to even integrate the spiritual piece. And you go, well, wait, that's part of who we are. And so often, how can I address real issues and not address the spiritual side? And then there's the lifestyle. We started working a lot with eating disorders years ago, and anorexia and bulimia, which there didn't seem to be very good answers for. And we know that you've got to look at body chemistry. We know, so we do some unique things with a person who's has addiction, maybe it's alcohol. They've depleted a lot of nutrients in their body. Our doctors will test them, and if we actually give IVs, that's right, an IV in the arm of nutrients to replace what their bodies become deficient in. And suddenly, we see it all the time, it's like the brain starts to come back alive and go, oh, I can think, I can concentrate, and my cravings are less. Well, it's just because we've replaced some nutrients. We don't want if you're an addict, your nutrition's probably not real good. So we have dietitian. We're going to work with getting your body healthy again. So we just believe, and this was an early vision. Now it's organic, means it's always changing. We always want to improve. And we have a philosophy that when somebody comes to us, everybody's unique. And we want to pray for wisdom. Ask God for wisdom. What is it? And all the 1,000 pieces to the puzzle, what are the pieces that are missing for this person? And I just think it makes a difference if we're praying and asking God to show us what to do, how to really help. At best, to equip. We know that really Christ is the healer. We know that. And but we want to help lead to the putting the right pieces to that puzzle together. And so it's different for everybody. We had a guy here, and he told me I could share a story, but he had struggled with severe depression for years, has tried all the medications, worked at home, and nobody had ever asked him, what do you put in your mouth? In other words, what do you eat and drink? He had never been asked that. And so he was drinking remarkably about 10 to 12 pots of coffee a day. Pots, not cups, but pots. And nobody had asked him, I live in Seattle, drinking coffee is okay. But 12 pots or 10 pots of coffee a day, and he goes, well, they're just the home brew, well, those hold 10 or 12 cups. And that's all he did all day was drink coffee. Now, is that going to affect you emotionally? Will an antidepressant take care of that problem? No. So we've got to look at the whole person. So he had a lot of physical issues because you can't drink 10 to 12 pots of coffee a day and not be affected by it and do that for years.
Right.
So that's praying for wisdom.
Well, you've done that. I'm looking at the website of placeofhope.com. Your facility has been. When I look at what you help with, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, PTSD, OCD, addiction, and other areas such as spiritual renewal. You have been true to the faith and true to the Word of God, that God is the healer, and that you and your wife and your team are instruments of His healing, and that when we can see ourselves in the mirror and not turn away,
yes,
and we see ourselves in the way God sees us, then it's almost like let the healing begin.
Yes.
That we are a child of God. I deal with so many people that have been hurt, and we see narcissism on the rise. It's a culture. We've become a narcissistic culture. That's enough about me. What about me?
Yeah.
You know, that it's become sad to watch almost the anti-Copernicans who believe that they are the center of the universe, not the sun. And that's bringing a whole new set of dynamics into the equation. So you must have to stay on top of many new developments and collaboratively talk about new things you're seeing all the time that are being introduced into this ecology, which is a corrupt spiritual ecology that we're living in.
For sure.
But your services are available, and you do have evaluations that are available online. There's information that you can get online. There are testimonials online. 2 websites, aplaceofhope.com, as well as your site, which is drgregoryjantz.com. And you continue to put out books with the theme that no one is too far gone. No, and the Bible says no man can snatch you out of the hand of the Father. And just that one statement alone, no one can separate you from the love of God, not even yourself. When we put that into an understanding, that's what stimulates and starts bringing about healing, and that is the message of your book. The book is of it. If you or someone you love have been an addict, are an addict, or you are in the circle, the sphere of being impacted by an addict, this book is for you. It's for those going through it. It's for those who are the fallout from it. It's for those who want to help avoid and recognize and take action to keep somebody from going down a path of destruction. And it is a way for you to reclaim your life and move into a healthier future.
That's right.
Dr. Jantz, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for all the wonderful work you do. Thank you for being a friend of this program. And,
absolutely.
Always a pleasure to see you.
Good. It's teamwork.
Teamwork.
Thank you.
It is. God bless you, my friend, and thank you for being with us here on Revealing the Truth. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth.